question. Does your organization have core values? If so, do you know them by heart? Do your employees? And do they show up everywhere and in everything? If you've answered yes to all of these questions, then you're well on your way to building a great culture. As a culture consultant, however, I can tell you that organizations having problems with culture are the ones not living their values every single day. Core values are the principles you stand on. They speak to how the organization and its people will behave in order to achieve the vision and mission. So the vision is the why, the mission is the how, and the values are how you will act in order to get there. If you have core values, but they aren't being used, you don't need them anyway because no one knows them. Start over and create new ones. Besides, it's important to create values with your team so they buy into them. I've included an exercise to help you create core values with your team, but essentially, during your next company-wide meeting, you will break your attendees up into groups of 4 and give them 15 minutes to answer some questions, such as, how would you like to be treated by your peers and managers? And how do we need to behave to meet our vision and mission? By the way, if your company is too large or spread out to do company-wide meetings, you can always pass the exercise along to the department heads and let them run it in their own teams, and then collect and consolidate their answers. After 15 minutes, ask each group to share their answers. As they do so, type them onto a projected document so everyone can see what everyone else said. From there, you can determine themes in the answers and create core values using those themes. I often just start making categories as I see them and then move things around as I go. For example, you may notice a trend of bullet points that say acknowledge, praise, say thank you, and recognize others' good work. You can put those into a category called appreciation. After going through all of the answers, you'll find several themes and you'll have to whittle them down. I recommend no more than 5 powerful, profound statements that people will remember because they ignite emotion. For example, if innovation is one of the themes that popped up, please don't use the word innovation as your core value. It isn't powerful or profound. Try join the revolution, or change the game, or alter the universe. From there, you can use some of the words provided in the exercise to further explain what the value means. So, we're altering the universe might then have a few follow-up sentences that read, each of us is challenged to be innovative, think on our feet, and problem solve. We will go to the ends of the earth and beyond to meet our clients' needs. We are open and accepting of each other's crazy ideas that just might work. I also recommend getting your culture committee to take this whole project on. They should determine the themes and then come up with fun and interesting values. I'd encourage them to ask the whole company to vote and provide input, and then you'll have values that everyone had input in. Now comes the hard part, bringing core values into the daily life of every single employee. This is where most organizations fall short. Ask the committee to put each core value in the strategic plan so that they are crafting ways for the organization to live them out. Ask HR to add the values to every single thing they do, from recruiting to performance management to bonuses and everything in between. Ask each department manager to make the core values part of every single thing they do too, such as their staff meetings and daily conversations with staff. Create learning programs around the values and reward people who exemplify them. Again, include your values in every single thing you do. I've included a list of 30 ways to make core values more prominent in the exercise files. They include asking employees to film testimonials about how they live the core values and then holding a viewing party, starting a book club with books focused on your values, and creating a poster contest for each value that you can hang around the office. Always remember that values drive behavior, and behavior drives culture. So as you're driving toward that pin in the map, that place your business is trying to get to, your managers can use your core values to keep your people driving on the road to success. Now that you have a vision statement and a list of 5 core values, you have to bring them to life with action items. These action items will facilitate behavior change, and over time, you will see a change in your culture. Culture and behavior are intertwined. In order to change culture, you have to push back on behavior. As behavior changes, so will the culture. Earlier in this course, I spoke of a positive culture committee who will work on a strategic plan based on the survey results. Now that you have your core values, the committee will add them to the strategic plan too. So let's talk about how to create and execute a strategic plan. In the exercise files, I provided a sample strategic plan to provide a frame of reference as we discuss the process. So let's look at objectives. This is where the themes of your survey data and your core values go. Let's say your survey found that internal communication is broken, including between managers and employees feel they are the last to know new processes and policies. Let's also say that one of your new core values is make maximum impact. These are each objectives, and within each objective, you and your team will determine goals. So within the objective of communication between managers and employees, you might add monthly one-on-ones, quarterly get-togethers, and more. For your core value of maximum impact, you might add collecting videos from staff and clients, for example. You must then determine a time frame, lead, resources, and budget for each goal, as well as a measurement of success. So let's talk about that. There are 3 levels of measurement to look at. Was the item completed? Did it cause behavior change? And are there business results? You should always strive for measuring your action items through business results if you can, but to be honest, you may not be able to on every item in your plan. Let's say one item is to update the onboarding program. You could measure success by simply saying this task was completed. Or you could measure it through behavior change. Is the new onboarding program actually being implemented with new hires? Or you could measure it through business results. If turnover is reduced by 15%, I'd say that's a real win and a much more impactful measurement. But you may also have other action items, such as holding a town hall meeting to review survey results, for example. And the only way to measure that really is to just say it happened. A few final comments about your strategic plan. One way to create more buy-in for the strategic plan is to get managers involved in adding tasks with their staff. In other words, provide managers a blank strategic plan and ask them to develop some inter-team specific action items around the survey data and core values. Strategic plans can be daunting to look at, update, and execute. I won't lie to you, they take a lot of hard work. But they can also be really fun. If your goal is to create a more positive work environment, then your plan has to be full of positive and energizing tasks. So have fun being creative with all of your new ideas. In the end, you are working toward creating a thriving, happy work environment. And I think that's pretty important. You can have the most amazing vision for your company culture, but if you don't have people on board to achieve that vision, it doesn't make a difference. You have to get your people excited about this new culture and why it's going to be so great for them. And I recommend you turn to the person who knows your people best for help, human resources. Once your core values are determined, for example, you will need HR to bring them to life. So let's take a look at that. Ask HR to add the core values to their recruiting processes by including them in their job postings and designing interview questions to ensure people who are hired believe in those values too. HR should include the core values in their onboarding programs, ensuring new people know them and will live by them daily. HR should include them in their performance evaluation process so that people are measured on whether they exemplify those values, and those who do should be rewarded and acknowledged. HR will be responsible for managers and leadership training focused on the core values and how to bring them to life in their own departments and teams. HR should also be doing training on effective leadership skills and driving a positive employee experience. Then HR should create programs around holding leaders accountable to doing just that. Any leader who does it well should be rewarded, and any leader who doesn't should be coached. In addition, as you grow through culture change, there really will just be a whole lot of training on the new culture, what it means, what's expected of everyone to participate, and all the ways culture will show up in daily work life. You'll need HR for all that too. You'll also rely on HR for conducting surveys to measure your success. Before you get started on culture change, you should do a survey to determine where your opportunities for improvement are and benchmark your climate. Then HR can conduct pulse surveys at least once a quarter, if not once every few weeks, to keep track of whether people are feeling the effects of all your positivity. HR should also be charged with partnering with the marketing team, so they work together to communicate about the culture, celebrate successes, and market your positive workplace both internally and externally. Lean on HR to help you develop and manage your strategy for culture change. HR will bring in new talent to help you solidify the culture, create programs and committees around that new culture, and ultimately provide support and guidance to all leaders as they learn and grow in this new workplace you're creating. In order to do that, you've got to give HR a seat at the proverbial table. HR needs to work closely with key stakeholders in the culture initiative if they are going to help develop a strategy and execute it. In fact, I often put HR in charge of overseeing the strategic plan when I work with clients. And this is more than checking the box when a task is complete. It's being hands-on and fully present and participating in the process of each task where needed. One note of caution. Beware that there are two kinds of HR professionals. Those who focus on administration of HR initiatives, such as pay and benefits, and those who focus on people. We need both in this world, but to build a positive culture, you absolutely need the latter in a leadership seat. So get HR on board to help you stay focused on your culture and ensure that your workplace is full of thriving, happy employees who love what they do. I want to let you in on a little HR secret. The annual performance evaluation is dead. Gone are the days when a manager graded an employee on their performance and the employee didn't get to do any grading themselves. If you want to build an engaged workforce who is positive and thriving, you need people to know you value their opinion. And one way to do that is to ask for it during those performance conversations. Performance conversation should be a time for collaboration. The manager will still grade performance and discuss with the employee what he or she is doing well and what could be worked on for improvement. But the employee should also be sharing what the manager could be doing better and how the manager can help the employee reach goals. The exercise files include a list of 19 questions managers could choose from to help guide these collaborative conversations. You can also find the list in my article posted on LinkedIn. Managers shouldn't ask all 19 in one sitting, but they should choose one or two for each employee, depending on what each employee's needs are. Through this process, the manager will learn what the employee needs to reach their own goals, and the employee will learn what they can do to help the company reach its goals. Now performance is a collaboration focused on the goals of both parties, and that's how you inspire engagement. By the way, this shouldn't be annual either. Remember I said the annual performance evaluation is dead. At the very least, performance conversations should occur quarterly, and monthly is even better. And you can still have one formal conversation that dictates pay and bonuses, which I know many organizations still do. But that's just a formal, on-the-books conversation to record pay raises and bonuses. Again, the performance conversation has been happening all along. So ask your HR department to take a look at the system you have in place for performance management. The performance management cycle is, in its basic form, 3 steps. Setting expectations about behavior and performance, which should be done by managers, monitoring behavior and performance, and rewarding those who meet expectations. The point is that your new culture should be tied into the performance system in all possible ways. For example, people should be rewarded for living the culture and core values. and those who aren't should be receiving coaching and perhaps placed on a performance improvement system or PIP if needed. And here's something you probably didn't know. You can discipline people and even let them go if they aren't living the values or fitting into your culture. It's so interesting to me that every day people around the world are fired for poor performance. But I often witness how scared managers and HR can be to fire someone for poor behavior. It makes no sense. Poor behavior is poor performance. So please take action when someone is behaving badly. Long story short, one way to ensure you push your culture forward is to reward those who live the culture and help those who don't. And you can do all that through your collaborative performance management system. Major change is often said to be impossible unless the head of the organization is an active supporter. This is a quote by John Kotter, one of the great leaders in the world of leading change. One thing Kotter always talks about is creating a sense of urgency. This is necessary to drive change, as urgency sends the message that the change is extraordinarily important, and without it, the company will surely fail. In the case of culture change, once you've done your survey, you have to respond immediately to the results. Implement some low-hanging fruit and get your strategic plan together quickly. Then execute on the plan's action items quickly. Communicate often that the change must happen, and it must happen now. And then act with urgency too. Kotter also advises leaders to enlist a volunteer army, as he calls it, to help with the change. In other words, you can't lead change without followers. So you have to constantly inspire people to enlist voluntarily in the change you want to make. Constantly ask people how they will be a part of this change rather than a resistor. Ask people to commit to actions that will help move the change along, or step out of the way if they won't commit. In fact, part of leading change is removing barriers to the end goal. I hate to say it, but some people may not be on board with your culture change. They may enjoy the social power a negative culture has brought them. Or perhaps they are just too caught up in the old way of doing things, so they can't see the light that you're trying to bring. If people aren't moving in the right direction, they are a barrier to your end goal. Other barriers might include processes or organizational structures. They can prevent people from trying new things in line with the new culture, or perhaps a manager doesn't understand how to reward and celebrate the new vision, or maybe HR processes aren't in line with the new culture. You may even have people who disagree that change is needed. In any event, these barriers must be identified and removed. You can identify them by listening closely to your employees. You must also communicate often about everything in order to successfully lead change. Change is impossible without constant communication about it. And use all existing communication channels available to broadcast the vision, the action items in place to achieve it, whether they've been successful or not, and what's next. And while communication may come in the form of your emails and newsletter announcements, even more importantly, it comes in your actions. You must show people that you are exemplifying the new core values and doing everything in your power to ensure the change is successful. Follow these tips in addition to all of the others I've provided in this course, and you're on your way to successful change. Think of a change that you recently experienced, but that's entirely behind you now. It could be a personal or professional one, but it must be behind you. Now, pull out a piece of paper and do this exercise with me. First, remember back to how life was before the change. Write down some ideas about what you were thinking and feeling before the change. Go ahead, pause the video for a minute. Now, once the change started to occur, at the beginning phases of it, how were you feeling? Pause the video and write down your thoughts, feelings, and reactions there as it began to set in. Next, think about the change as it was more than half over. Write down your feelings then. Finally, once the change passed and was over, write down your thoughts, feelings, and reactions. Can you see some distinctions in how you changed throughout the process? Well, your employees are going to go through those 4 phases too. So let's review them. Before you ever even mention change, your workforce is in a place of comfort and control. Even if you have a terrible work environment, there's comfort in driving to work each morning knowing how the day will unfold. That knowledge provides a sense of control. Oddly enough, even when the work environment is absolutely awful and people always say they want change, when it's offered, people clam up and resist. Or they get caught up in the old way of doing things. Or change seems scary, even if it's good change. To overcome all of that, you have to sell the need for change. You have to make people feel the pain and inspire them to become emotionally attached to the problem you're trying to solve with the move toward a positive workplace. For example, one of my clients works with kids who have been left behind in a giant government system that can't keep up with the needs of our population. The leader in this case is pushing people out of comfort and control by reminding her staff that without a culture shift, these kids will suffer. She has to sell her staff on the problem first before she can sell the solution. The second phase your employees will go through in this change is fear and resistance. This occurs as the change begins to unfold and take shape. Again, even if it's a good change, people are often afraid of it. In this phase, you'll need to spend a whole lot of time listening, and listening. Understand that people perceive a loss when they lose the old way of doing things. So address these perceived losses by adjusting your strategic plan as needed and by empathizing with your people. Don't try to talk people out of the way they feel. Rather, listen, empathize, and keep people talking. The third phase, which happens as the change takes hold and has been going on for a while, is inquiry. Employees start to realize the change is real and begin to experiment with new behaviors. In this phase, you have to encourage risk-taking, empower people to find their way in this change, and give people freedom to live this new culture you're working toward. A quick way to bring your culture change to a startling halt is to say you want people to act a certain way, but not provide the freedom to do that, and to not acknowledge people when they exemplify what you're looking for. If you're encouraging people to share ideas for your new product, for example, but one manager never acts on them, then his employees will go back to the way it was and stop sharing ideas. Managers need to know that they are expected to be open and provide support. As the change becomes solidified, you'll enter the commitment phase. In this phase, you will celebrate successes so far, keep pushing the vision, create systems that reinforce new behaviors, and continue to develop long-term plans to keep the new culture going. A big mistake many leaders make in this phase is to assume the change is over and they can stop communicating about it. But in the case of a positive workplace culture, the leader absolutely has to keep culture at the front of everything he or she does. Decisions, programs, initiatives, services, and products all have to be compared against the culture. In a strong culture, the leader and every employee will always ask themselves, does this meet with our culture? If the this does meet with the culture, the employee can move forward. If not, the employee will hopefully drop it, whether it's a behavior or a performance issue. As John C. Maxwell said, change is inevitable. Growth is optional. As the leader, you get to push forward change and ignite excitement in your staff as they grow into your new way of doing things. The last step in building a positive, thriving culture is an ongoing one. I like to call it lather, rinse, repeat. You'll try things out to see what might work, lather, determine what's working and what's not, and what revisions need to be made, rinse, and then you'll keep trying out new ideas to find out what works. This course has provided you with all the tools you need to create the right culture and do your lather, rinse, repeats moving forward. You can run a survey, lead an action team, create a vision and core values, create a strategic plan, and effectively lead change. And there are a ton of resources out there for creating a culture change. I've written a book called Seeking Civility: How Leaders, Managers, and HR Can Create a Workplace Free of Bullying. That book lays out all of the steps I've provided here. I also regularly post articles on building positive workplaces on my LinkedIn page, so I hope you'll connect with me there. Beyond that, any book by John Kotter or John Maxwell are great resources. If you're looking for information about what positive workplaces do, read Kim Cameron's book, Positive Leadership, which provides a lot of actionable ideas you can add to your strategic plan. I'm so glad you chose to spend this time with me. I honestly believe that it is a leader's moral and ethical responsibility to create an environment where people can thrive. The effect on them and on your community is tremendous. I've seen firsthand what a negative workplace can do to a person, and I wouldn't wish it on my worst enemy. So go and get started on that survey so you can start making change right away. And good luck.